Chet. We're up against Chet.
Just plow right on through here, huh?
Okay, Will.
Don't be angry with me, darling, if I fail to understand your little whim and wishes all the time. Just remember that I don't buy gifts like any foolish man, and my head stays kind of foggy cause you're mine. Well, I recall for the first time I flirted with you, dear. I jokingly said, come and be my bride. Now that time I turn the pages, it's the sweetest joke on earth that I have you here forever by my side. Don't be angry with me, darling, if I fail to understand your little whims and wishes all the time. Just remember that I don't like this like any foolish man. My head stays Don't be angry with me, darling, if I fail to understand your little whim and wishes all the time. Just remember that I don't buy gifts like any foolish man, but my head stays kind of foggy cause you're mine. And my head stays kind of foggy cause you're mine. Don't be angry.
So excited that 2015 marks the beginning of our celebration of our 125th anniversary since our founding. We have so many great things planned, ways to reflect on our past, to consider the amazing women who started this organization, but most importantly, the women who have built it to what it is today. 125 years of service to God, home, and country. In October of 1890, there were 4 women who came together to organize a society. 2 were from the North, 2 were from the South. They wanted to unite this organization to honor the patriotism and the magnificent men and women who served to make America free. The objectives that they decided at the very first meeting were historic preservation, education, and patriotism. That's exactly what our objectives still are today. We are still actively preserving and marking historic buildings and sites. We are still promoting education through impacting thousands of children and students throughout this country. We are actively promoting good citizenship and support of our military and our veterans through our commitment of our hundreds of thousands of hours of service and of dollars as well. We have planned so many different activities for this current year, and we really want, most of all, for every member to feel a part of the celebration. Among the special activities, we'll have an expanded social media. We're going to have our own Facebook page where the chapters can tell us the stories of what they are doing in their communities and how they are celebrating our anniversary. We will also have special events at Continental Congress, a look back in our history, but a look forward as well. We are asking each chapter to do is to consider taking on a special service project to celebrate this 125th anniversary, finding something special and doing that in your community to make everyone aware of how vital and relevant DAR is and how we are still serving America. We will also be presenting several videos throughout the year that will help tell our story. We have some remarkable items in our NSDAR archive, such as the original charter of the National Society, and we are eager to share those with our members. The more we learn about our history, the more inspired and energized I think we will all be. We will have a number of commemorative items available to celebrate this anniversary as well. Everything from a key ring to a beautiful limited edition commemorative plate, a presentation bowl, or a silver spoon. We will have a special certificate available for everyone who becomes a member in 2015. This is the time to encourage your relatives and your friends to become a member. This is the time to join the DAR. Please stay up to date on the blog and in the website and in the magazine so that you too will know of some of the exciting opportunities that we have. 125 years later, our members are still as passionate about historic preservation, education, and patriotism as they were in 1890. I hope you will take part in this celebration, will learn more about our history, become engaged in the work of your chapter, your state society, the national society, and that your membership in DAR will be as important to you as my membership is to me.
As the United States marked 100 years in existence, a new sentiment arose among Americans to connect with its founding history. In the spring of 1876, Philadelphia hosted the Centennial Exposition, which helped give rise to an era of colonial revival. Patriotic organizations began to form, including the Sons of the American Revolution in 1889. The following year, the Sons voted to exclude women from the group, galvanizing a force for the creation of a new women's organization. Mary Smith Lockwood wrote in a letter printed in the Washington Post detailing the legend of Hannah Arnett, who in 1776 courageously prevented a meeting of men from proclaiming loyalty with the British. Lockwood wrote, "Were there no mothers of the Revolution? Where will the sons and daughters of the Revolution place Hannah Arnett?" Mary Smith Lockwood's letter would be a catalyst for action. William O. McDowell, founding member of the Sons of the American Revolution and great-grandson of Hannah Arnett, was immediately moved. He penned a response calling on women to form their own organization. Gatherings were held at various private residences throughout the summer of 1890 between the lead organizers, Mary Smith Lockwood, Eugenia Washington, Mary DeShay, and Ellen Hardin Walworth. The culmination of these meetings occurred on October 11th, with the first organizational meeting with 18 women in attendance. as well as 4 supportive members of the Sons of the American Revolution who would act as an advisory board. Also in attendance was Mary Ellett Cabell, who would serve as vice president presiding and whose home would be the first headquarters for the daughters. She would seek out a lady prominent in the United States to serve as the first President General. Caroline Scott Harrison, the First Lady of the United States, would fill that position until her death in 1892. In that first year, membership applications flooded in, and fundraising efforts commenced on the first project, to erect a monument in Fredericksburg, Virginia, to mark the birthplace of Mary Washington, mother to George Washington. On February 22, 1892, the First Continental Congress was held at the Church of Our Father in Northwest Washington, D.C. As Ellen Hardin Walworth would write in 1893, "It is not a social organization. It is an order patriotic, historical, and genealogical, and hold itself closely to these objects." This new society would harness a desire for service that would help usher in the progressive era in the United States and create a legacy for future generations of women.
Serving as your President General is the privilege of a lifetime. But having the opportunity to serve our national society during this, our 125th year, has been an extraordinary experience. As I travel from coast to coast and truly around the world, I am awed by your devotion to our ideals. You have demonstrated in thousands of ways the enduring relevancy of our mission. In projects large and small, you are fulfilling a pledge made by a small group of women in 1890 that future generations would remember, would appreciate, and would celebrate the sacrifice and values that make America the greatest nation on earth. And for that, I thank you and I salute you. I also thank Presley M. Wagoner, Honorary President General, who served as the chair of our Celebrate 125 committee during this, our anniversary year. It is a joy for me to ask her to help us honor those who created and shaped the society we celebrate this evening. Mrs. Wagoner.
Madam President General, we gather this evening in a magnificent hall in the heart of our nation's capital with a debt of gratitude to repay. A debt not only to our patriot ancestors and to the brave men and women who have worn the uniform of our nation's armed forces, but also a debt to the visionary citizens who 125 years ago laid the very foundation for this evening, who together shared an ambitious and audacious undertaking to establish a nationwide organization to celebrate and perpetuate the American spirit, our beloved and enduring National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. Tonight, we must pause to honor the patriotism, focus, and resiliency of those early leaders who so skillfully charted a course for the generations that would follow. The now familiar facts of our founding have been repeated many times, but tonight, by sharing fragments of their hopes, their motivations, their frustrations, in their own words from those first formative years, we hope that the dreams of those visionary leaders might echo down through the decades to propel us forward further still, inspired anew in service to God, home, and country. We are fortunate that our founding members' dedication to preservation has left us with many treasures in our NSDAR archives, including much of the early correspondence, documentation, and meeting notes of our fledgling society 125 years ago. Mere months after the newly founded Sons of the American Revolution voted to exclude women from their society, a passionate supporter and advocate for female descendants of the Revolution, began confidential correspondence with some of his like-minded brothers in the SAR. In a letter dated October 25, 1889, William McDowell writes,
"We shall invite the organization in the different states of the Union of the Daughters of the Revolution, independent entirely of the sons. I'm in a hurry to get at this work that I may show the sons what the daughters can do. On my suggestion, the vote on the subject yesterday was not recorded in our minutes, for the reason that I wanted to save the gentlemen who voted no from being so thoroughly ashamed of themselves when they see what an opportunity they had and let slip by."
After Mary Smith Lockwood wrote her rallying cry in the Washington Post and interested women began planning the new organization, the official organizing meeting was called for October 11, 1890, and included Mary DeShay, who, as Secretary Pro Tem, recorded in those meeting minutes this resolution.
Resolved that at this, our organizing meeting, we initiate the important part of our work, the securing and preserving of the historical spots of America, and the erection thereon of suitable monuments to perpetuate the memories of the heroic deeds of the men and women who aided the Revolution and created constitutional government in America, by undertaking to do what we can towards completing the monument and the memory of Mary Washington, mother of George Washington. And we hereby call upon every patriot to send us a contribution, large and small, to our treasurer for this purpose.
Just one day after that historic meeting of the newly formed Daughters of the American Revolution, Miss DeShay sent a letter to Virginia Cabell informing her of an important assignment.
My dear Mrs. Cabell, Mr. McDowell has appointed you, Mrs. Lockwood, Mrs. Darling, Mrs. Walworth, and me as committee to call on Mrs. Harrison to ask her acceptance of the office of President General. The time selected is 4:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Monday, October 13th. The ladies will meet you at the White House.
5 days after that meeting at the Executive Mansion, the Secretary to the First Lady of the United States sent a letter on behalf of Mrs. Harrison to say she would accept the position. In the days and months following, meetings and correspondence gave shape to the new society. As we all know, many ideas are often put forth but not always realized. Ellen Hardin Walworth wrote to Mrs. Cabell a suggestion to consider for the Society's motto.
My dear Mrs. Cabell, it has occurred to me that I did not suggest for consideration, as I had intended, this simple motto for our seal, Amor Patriae, love of country. It seems to me that this might settle at once an objection already urged against us in a tendency to create an aristocracy, or at least a class sentiment, as it would point to the real inspiration of the association.
From the minutes of the third and final organizing meeting on December 11, it is noted that the Executive Committee recommended that the motto, Amor Patriae, be changed to home and country. Also from this December meeting, the Vice President General presiding read aloud a telegram that had been sent from the Sons of the American Revolution.
Resolved that the General Board of Managers of the Society of the Sons of the American Revolution extend its hearty sympathy to the Daughters of the American Revolution in their organization, and it assures them of cordial cooperation in their patriotic work.
As the Daughters were finalizing their vision for the Society these first few months, William McDowell continued to show his support. In a letter to Mrs. Cabell on November 19, 1890, he writes in part,
"My dear Mrs. Cabell, I received a newspaper clipping giving an account of your meeting and believe that your society has a brilliant future before it."
From the intensive meetings and correspondence of those early months, a constitution of the National Society was established. Our enduring objectives of historic preservation, education, and patriotism were detailed in that original DAR Constitution and continue to guide our work today.
Article 2, Objects of the Society. The objects of this society are: 1. To perpetuate the memory and the spirit of the men and women who achieved American independence by the acquisition and protection of historical spots and the erection of monuments, by the encouragement of historical research in relation to the Revolution and the publication of its results, by the preservation of documents and relics, and of the records of the individual services of the revolutionary soldiers and patriots, and by the promotion of celebrations of all patriotic anniversaries. 2. To carry out the injunction of Washington in his farewell address to the American people, to promote, as an object of primary importance, institutions for the general diffusion of knowledge, thus developing an enlightened public opinion, and affording to the young and old such advantages as shall develop in them the largest capacity for performing the duties of American citizens. 3. To cherish, maintain, and extend the institutions of American freedom, to foster true patriotism and love of country, and to aid in securing for mankind all the blessings of liberty.
Reflecting on how the Society continued to grow in that first year, prolific writer and early historian general Mary Smith Lockwood described how word spread about the purpose of the Society.
Newspapers took up the cry and sent intelligence over the land. Application papers began to pour in. The American women were awakened by this revelation, and now, "What is it for?" was answered with, "It is not for an aristocracy, but to honor the men who carried the muskets and the boys who beat the drums and fifed Yankee Doodle for liberty, for the honor of the women who served the country in their homes while the men were away fighting the battles for freedom, and that their names should be rescued from the musty annals of the Revolution and for the first time inscribed on the pages of history as factors in making the nation."
At the First Continental Congress in February of 1892, Registrar General Eugenia Washington stressed the importance of preserving the stories and records of our revolutionary patriot ancestors and the importance of verifying documentation to ensure its integrity.
The records of the services of these 1,306 patriots thus preserved form volumes of most interesting as well as valuable history. Yet this history will lose much of its value if the statements contained therein are not to be relied upon. Therefore, we recommend to the regents and delegates present to give an exact and full statement of the ancestors' service and authority for the statement. For these records, we should remember, are collected not only for present use, but shall stand through future generations as monuments to our noble sires.
Our founders knew the importance of preserving those records in an appropriately prominent home for the Society. Virginia Cabell addressed the membership at the First Continental Congress and prophetically described the magnificent DAR headquarters complex where we gather annually for our conference and which serves our membership and the entire Washington, D.C. community throughout the year as a brick and mortar testament to their visionary foresight.
The building of a house beautiful, to be the property of these American women calling themselves by inherited right daughters of the American Revolution. This house will be built in or near the beautiful capital city named for Washington, the immortal. It should be the finest building ever owned by women. The fairest marbles from Vermont and Tennessee, the most enduring granite from Massachusetts and the Virginias. Purely American this structure should be. A great hall for lectures, addresses, and general conventions of the society is greatly needed. It could be utilized on many occasions to produce a certain income for its support. Offices and committee rooms are required for the business of the society, now more than 1,000 in number, and soon to number many thousands. Safes are essential for the preservation of documents and relics. There should be a library unsurpassed in all branches pertaining to the records of the society and containing the largest, most complete collections of works upon American history.
While our beloved First President General did not live to see how our society flourished beyond those early years, she set a tone at her address to the First Continental Congress, a challenge that emboldened our early members and continues to inspire us today.
Our hope is in unity and self-sacrifice. Since this society was organized, and so much thought and reading directed to the early struggle of this country, it has been made plain that much of its success was due to the character of the women of that earlier era. The unselfish part they acted constantly commends itself to our admiration and example. If there is no abatement in this element of success in our ranks, I feel sure their daughters can perpetuate a society worthy of the cause and worthy of themselves. We now feel that this society is firmly established and in good condition for future success. It remains with us all to see that it lives and grows to greater and better ends.
Madam President General, it is a privilege for me, as the National Chairman of the Celebrate 125 Committee, to express on behalf of all daughters, past and present, our heartfelt commitment to carry forward Mrs. Harrison's charge that our society lives and grows to greater and better ends. After 125 years of accomplishment, we rise with joy to face a future bright with promise, one built upon the soundest of foundations and the most enduring of missions. I congratulate you and the National Society on 125 years of service to America. And inspired anew by the words of our founders, I also suspect that the best is yet to come. Happy birthday, NSDAR.
Thank you, Presley. It is so inspiring to know that at that organizing meeting 125 years ago, with just 18 members in attendance, that the business they carried out that day is still guiding our organization today. We are so fortunate to have been founded by such strong and visionary women. In the years that followed that formative period, daughters everywhere fulfilled the joyful obligations of citizenship and membership in tens of thousands of ways, and literally millions of lives were changed for the better as a result. New citizens, deserving students, men and women in uniform, veterans in need, all have been served by the DAR. Tens of thousands of Patriot records and grave sites preserved and protected thanks to DAR. Thousands of local sites of historic significance would likely have disappeared long ago were it not for the DAR. No single evening could do justice to the breadth and scope of DAR's impact on America during the last 125 years. So I encourage you to learn more about our amazing history, to visit our website, subscribe to our award-winning American Spirit magazine, read our publications such as The American Treasure, The Enduring Spirit of DAR. I assure you that you too will be awed by the combined accomplishment of our organization. I learn new chapters of our history every day.
At its onset, the founding members of the Daughters of the American Revolution invoked the thoughts of our country's founders, that education, above all else, is the decisive element of a democracy. The DAR built this idea to the three pillars of the organization and have dedicated a majority of their efforts over the past century to education programs throughout the nation. In the early 20th century, the newly formed DAR contributed financial support at the chapter level to numerous schools across the country. In 1914, the South Carolina Daughters voted to establish a school for mountain girls in the remote northwestern part of the state. Securing support from the National Society, as well as land and financial donations, the chapter opened the Tomasi DAR School in February of 1919, and today continues its educational mission. Other areas of the country also saw the creation of schools during the early 20th century, including the Kate Duncan Smith DAR School in Alabama, the Crossnor School in North Carolina, the Hillside School in Massachusetts, the Hindman Settlement School in Kentucky, and Berry College in Georgia. Today, the 6 DAR schools are funded by over $1 million annually from the DAR. Through DAR's American Indians Committee, funds are also allocated to Bacone College in Oklahoma and Chemawa Indian Preparatory Academy in Oregon to help the educational needs of Native American students. American history has always been a focus of DAR education efforts. The first DAR American History Essay Contest was held in 1898. Today, through a nationally coordinated program that encourages youngsters to learn about history in a new light, more than 4,000 schools participate in this annual contest for students in grades 5 through 8, with nearly 66,000 essays submitted yearly. The DAR Scholarship Committee awards approximately $200,000 yearly in a wide range of disciplines. Applications for DAR scholarships average more than 1,600 each year. Educating the next generation to be good citizens is also a top priority for the DAR through various programs. In 1921, after years of chapter-level citizen education programs for immigrants, the National Society published the DAR Manual for Citizenship to help educate newly arrived immigrants preparing for the naturalization process. Over the next few decades, the DAR would produce over 1 million copies of the manual. Junior American Citizens Committee is one of the Society's oldest youth-oriented committees. It reaches out to tens of thousands of students from kindergarten through grade 12 to promote patriotism in every child. To help promote the program across the country, many chapters recognize achievements through awards, as well as holding contests in creative expression and community service. With more than half of the national committees focusing on elements of education, the DAR is prioritizing this founding principle within the organization. Over the last 125 years, through its many programs for youth and adults, the DAR has given the opportunity to learn to millions of lives. With a force of nearly 1 million members since its founding, the Daughters of the American Revolution have performed a vital range of service in support of the military over the past 125 years. Founded to preserve the memory and spirit of the revolutionary patriots who fought for America's independence, the DAR extends that mission by honoring the sacrifices of all those who have continued fighting for our freedom throughout our nation's history. Patriotism, one of the founding tenets of the organization, lives within each and every daughter. While the DAR was still in its infancy, the United States found itself in conflict with Spain in 1898. Dr. Anita Newcomb McGee, then a DAR Vice President General, volunteered the organization to help screen the nurses needed by the government. The DAR Hospital Corps would be established and screened thousands of nursing applications within the next few months, sending more than 1,500 nurses to help in the conflict. During the First World War, numerous chapters volunteered their efforts to help. Members of the Cincinnati DAR knitted garments for the troops. Other chapters rolled bandages, collected clothing, and donated food for the USO. The Mercy Warren chapter of Springfield, Massachusetts, hosted first aid classes and fundraisers. After the attacks on Pearl Harbor, the DAR headquarters became a center for wartime activity. Offices throughout the DAR buildings were loaned to the American Red Cross. A day nursery was opened in the basement of Constitution Hall for the children of enlisted men whose wives were working. The DAR members also purchased over $2 million in war bonds and stamps during the course of the fighting. Through conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East, DAR members passionately lent their support in various ways through monetary donations and volunteer efforts. Following the attack on September 11th, the DAR worked with the Department of the Navy to sponsor the crew of the aircraft carrier USS John C. Stennis. When the ship returned to port, DAR members' support shifted to the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, which cares for wounded military personnel. DAR members also regularly send care packages to troops overseas. Care for our nation's veterans has also always been a top priority for the DAR, and members perform more than 300,000 volunteer hours annually to support veterans programs. The DAR is one of the largest groups to serve on the Department of Veterans Affairs Voluntary Service National Advisory Committee, and DAR member volunteers are a regular fixture at VA hospitals across the country. The Daughter Support to Veterans also provides the perfect setting for capturing and recording their stories as part of the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. DAR members have also served in all branches of service themselves, including more than 600 members who served in a variety of capacities during World War II, and many more who have come after them. Whether at home or abroad, the members of the Daughters of the American Revolution serve the country that they love with the same dedication as their revolutionary patriots. Through their continuing efforts to support active duty service members and honor veterans, DAR members are committed to celebrating those who defend our nation's freedom. Honoring and preserving the memory of those who served in the American Revolution not only includes the signers of the Declaration of Independence or high-ranking military officers, but also the everyday soldier or colonist who contributed to our fight for independence. As many as 250,000 men served in the Army or militia, and countless others heroically helped with the efforts. In the first report to Congress, the newly formed Daughters of the American Revolution described that their genealogical research showed the experiences of the many unnoticed heroes and forgotten heroines who composed the rank and file of the nation in 1776. Patriots like Peter Rogers, who enlisted as a fife major in the 4th Regiment, Connecticut Line, and served in Washington's Army in Pennsylvania, and William Hughes, who was a volunteer private in the 2nd New Hampshire Regiment. Other patriots contributed to the cause off the battlefield, such as Michael Gratz of Philadelphia, who signed a pledge to cease trading with the British and supplied gunpowder and firearms to George Washington's troops. Women also contributed to the fight for independence, but their efforts were often less heralded. In the early 1920s, the Daughters of the New York State Organization helped to honor a once-forgotten patriot with a burial place of honor. Margaret Cochran Corbin manned an artillery cannon after her husband was killed during a battle. She was wounded and years later was buried near West Point. Through research, the DAR linked Margaret Corbin to her heroic actions. Her body was exhumed and buried in a place of honor in the West Point Cemetery. Other women patriots also had military combat experience in the Revolution, such as Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself as a man and served in the Continental Army for 17 months before being wounded and honorably discharged. Elizabeth Zane showed great courage during the siege of Fort Henry when she volunteered to leave the fort during a pause in gun battle to fetch a keg of gunpowder and narrowly returned safely with the precious ammunition. While never directly in the line of fire, Mercy Otis Warren's strong convictions and political writings during the Revolution helped to galvanize the cause. African American and American Indian patriots also participated in the American Revolution. James Armistead, a slave, served as a spy for the Americans, while acting as a servant for British General Cornwallis. And Toby Gilmore, an African-born slave, won his own freedom by serving as a private in the Continental Army and contributing to a number of significant battles. Peter Harris, of the Catawba Nation in South Carolina, fought in the Revolution and was eventually recognized for his service. In October 2002, DAR opened the exhibit Forgotten Patriots, African American and American Indian Patriots in the Revolutionary War. It was the culmination of more than 20 years of research and based on a publication produced by DAR. To date, thousands of African American and American Indian patriots have been identified, and DAR researchers continue to work to uncover these individuals and their unique stories. Many foreign patriots also fought shoulder to shoulder with American patriots during the Revolution, including thousands of troops from France. Nationals of Sweden, Poland, Germany, Portugal, and the Netherlands also aided the American cause. Additionally, Spanish citizens provided enormous financial and military support to the American Revolution. Don Diego de Guerdeque was the financial intermediary between the Spanish court and the colonies during the American Revolution, helping to supply munitions and other military goods to the colonists. And the great Spanish military leader Bernardo de Galvez led Spanish forces defeating the British at the Siege of Pensacola. In the 1990s, the DAR formed a task force to identify Spanish nationals who contributed to the revolutionary cause. Since that time, members of the task force continue to develop a bibliography of historic events and sources that can prove Revolutionary War service of Spanish nationals. DAR's work and genealogical research has helped increase the knowledge of the patriots who helped make this country. With each new application and each new bit of information, we can have a better understanding of the sacrifices that were made in the 18th century. And with that, we can honor those heroes, one and all.
The 125th anniversary of the founding of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is an exciting time to be a DAR member. We have looked back into our archives and we found some wonderful videos of our past Presidents General as they have shared their memories from decades ago. And now we are digitizing those for future generations, and we have invited our current Honorary Presidents General to share their memories of their administrations and their accomplishments with us today.
I was very in awe of the organization because my mother-in-law, Lorna Owen Kemper, was chaplain general in Mrs. Spicer's administration. I, too, became responsible, feeling that I believe in education, historic preservation, and patriotism down deep in my heart. So I wanted to be a part of that.
I wanted to join, first of all, to carry on for my mother. My mother died. I joined the next year, and because so many of the family members, grandma and my cousin, and they're all, the mother, all members of DAR. So I just said, time to carry on.
I joined DAR as a junior member. I joined my mother's chapter and have been a member for many, many years. I think the reason I really joined the organization was because of a love of the objectives that it promoted. Historic preservation and education, and I was also very interested in genealogy.
I joined DAR in 1968, along with my mother and several family members. We were asked to form a new chapter, and that was named for my ancestor, Peter Houston. And after attending my first state conference in Nashville, I met so many outstanding Tennessee Dollars that I just knew I wanted to be a part of this organization.
Well, my mother was truly the driving force behind my joining the DAR. I was raised in a family where my parents instilled a very strong sense of family history and love of country. And so the first time I went to the Continental Congress 40 years ago, I knew once I had been here that this was the organization I wanted to identify with, and I wanted to become just very much involved in every aspect of DAR.
One thing that I've always enjoyed about DAR is the interactions between generations. And when I joined, I was one of the younger members, and now I'm one of the older ones, but I'm still enjoying it very much.
When I first joined DAR, I had no intention, and a lady called me. I didn't know who she was, and my second cousin had met her at a state conference and said I had recently moved to the area. And those ladies made me feel so welcome, and I don't think I would have ever have become active had they not called me the week before the meeting to make sure I had a babysitter, offered to watch my son so I could go to the meetings. Several times when I didn't have a sitter, they said, bring him with you.
When I was growing up, I was always aware that I had family members who had been members of the DAR and been encouraged to join at some point. And really, after the bicentennial of our country, when all the fervor of patriotism, I decided it was a good time for me to join, so I began the application process.
Well, I enjoyed the work, and I loved to be with the members, and also all the work they did with the students and scholarships and the schools, the DAR schools. I enjoyed that. Of course, I was a teacher. We raised over $777,000 for Ellis Island and helped with the restoration of the Statue of Liberty.
When we became involved in the World War II Memorial campaign to raise funds for that beautiful memorial on the mall, we became an active partner. We raised over $460,000 for that memorial and had the opportunity to work with Robert Dole, who was the volunteer national chairman.
We raised over $4.2 million for the renovation and restoration of the buildings. And the fact that the daughters gave so generously, and we could do so many wonderful things to the buildings.
My President General's project began the creation of a new digital database designed to improve operations and provide member access. The work of our genealogy department was expedited with the digitization of 800,000 applications and the accompanying 9 million support documents.
My primary goal when I was elected President General was to complete the digitization project that was begun in the previous administration. That was a continuing President General's project. A few of the proudest moments were the dedication ceremony of the Marian Anderson commemorative stamp, and it was a wonderful opportunity for there to be a wonderful relationship established between the DAR and Ms. Anderson's family.
Certainly proud of the work we did on the President General's project, especially work on the North Terrace with the flooding and stone deterioration. It was in critical need of work. We were able to, under the terrace, to build a 2,300 square foot vault. just beneath that surface 4 collections of the society, and that was a wealth of storage space.
As crazy as it seems, Washington, D.C. experienced an earthquake. When they did the assessment of the DAR library laylight ceiling, they discovered not damage from the earthquake, but damage from time. And our members who love Our House Beautiful so much came through with over $2 million to support the restoration of the DAR library laylight.
Most fun activities that we implemented was our Celebrate America committee. When we met, we challenged our members to try to come up with 1 million hours of community service a year. We just asked them to record the hours they're already doing in their community. And what astonished us is the enthusiasm that the chapters developed while working together in these community projects, how they became better acquainted with their own members. And then our first year, we had over 4,760,000 hours of community service.
My advice for future kids is to enjoy every minute, yeah. Work hard and enjoy it, yeah.
I think one thing is very important, and that is to approach your leadership as an opportunity for service and to surround yourself with wonderful people who will help you to accomplish that.
I think it's important for people who are going to take on leadership positions to remember that their goal should be to work for the very best of the organization, to always keep in mind what the mission is, and to do their very best for DAR. I think any President General who's going to take that role needs to know that she's got to put on her running shoes and get on the track, and she won't get off for 3 years.
Always be true to yourself, and when you make a decision about anything, always be certain of what that decision will reflect on as far as the National Society is concerned, and also what influence it might have on other daughters at the time. So when you look in the mirror, be true to yourself and always think about others.
I hope every member will consider becoming a leader, whether it's in her chapter or her state or the national level. What I would encourage them to do is to learn as much as you can about the DAR. Take advantage of every opportunity. Go to all those meetings, go to the workshops and the seminars, and learn as much as possible. But it's not possible to serve as President General without the full support of your family. That it truly is the biggest sacrifice, is the time with my family that I'm missing. They are completely supportive because they know that this is a rare privilege that I have for 3 years, and I'm enjoying every bit of it.
The most rewarding things as a member of DAR has been the association with ladies from all over the United States and through the units overseas. The friendships made have been just precious and dear, and I think every member will feel that way about the friendships.
The 125th anniversary is the perfect time to reflect on the energy and the mindset of our founders.
One of the things that I feel has occurred over the past 25 years is that the DAR has been able to better accommodate the busy woman, women who are working outside the home, women who have so many things going on in their lives. I think we've done a wonderful job of accommodating them in terms of an organization.
Celebrating the 125th anniversary of the society, I can't help but think back over the years and reflect on all the leaders that we've had and all the members that have done so much over the years and their dedication to the work of the society. It's really amazing when you think about it, that a small group of women organized this society in 1890, and yet many of their goals are still being sought after today, and we're working towards making this a continuing better society.
My involvement in DAR has always been spurred by the values of the organization and the friendships that I've made there. I have to say that one of the things that DAR allowed me to do is emulate the very best of the people I met.
I've often wondered, as we're planning our Quasquicentennial celebration, what our founders would think of us from 125 years ago when they began to have the vision for this organization and make plans for it. What would they think if they were to come back and see this society now and see how it's grown, see what wonderful care we've taken of these buildings, which they had the vision for? I know that our founders would be so proud that our society has grown, that we're continuing to be a vital part of this country, that we're holding dear to our missions of historic preservation, education, and patriotism, and that most of all, we're still honoring God, home, and country as we serve, united in these United States. 125 years ago, when our founders met for the first time, they determined we needed a fireproof building and managed to not only raise some money, but build this beautiful complex of buildings. The Guardian Trust campaign is the way for today's DAR to provide for tomorrow's DAR. Now is the time to create this endowment fund to preserve our buildings for the future.
When our founders and the early leaders of the DAR, they had the courage to step out in faith and to bit by bit buy the property, and then stone by stone they built the building. And they didn't get the roof on for the First Continental Congress. And when they finally finished it, they realized that every one of the Presidents General involved had been supportive and willing to promote the project.
Certainly our younger daughters that are daughters now, and those that will become members in the future, will always be proud of these buildings. To know the history of that small band of women that built these buildings is just incredible, that story, and we all want to continue that legacy. All of our members are proud to say that this is buildings that were built and maintained by women.
We can proudly say that we not only have a large collection of personal artifacts from the American Revolution, we have one of the largest collection of genealogical libraries in the world. We have a fabulous DAR museum that we share with school children every week that never have an opportunity to see museums otherwise. Constitution Hall has nearly 1 million visitors a year. It's the largest concert hall in the metropolitan D.C. area. Most of all, our founders had a vision for a home. We have a home right here at 1776 D Street.
When you think of preserving these buildings, I think you have to remember what we have in this building, those beautiful period rooms. Think of the Americana room and all of those precious documents, all of the furnishings throughout our buildings. Just think of the buildings, the architecture itself. That preservation effort is awesome. It is something that we're committed to doing, and it takes resources to do that. We have inherited these, and it's up to us to protect and preserve them.
I think my first impression of a visit to 1776 D Street was that the entire complex of buildings was absolutely overwhelming. And then experiences of being in Constitution Hall at the meetings and the opening night and National Defense Night ceremonies. I think that all of these things for a young DAR member were very impressionable experiences because it was an overwhelming thing to be there for the first time.
Well, most of the time, a President General has not had the opportunity to make a choice because of the needs of the maintenance of our headquarters. A President General should not be forced to take that on as her project. Our President General should take out projects that go beyond our headquarters, out into the world around us. What has been done in the past is there to remain. What will be done in today's world will be there to remain in future years. So everything we've done has not been in vain. So it is high time that we create some kind of an endowment that will preserve those buildings for years to come.
It would be wonderful to have that endowment so you didn't have each administration have to have a project to raise funds for this, to prepare this building or do that building or anything else like that. So that's all taken care of, so they can go ahead and do marvelous things, more things with the students, the education and conservation and restoration.
And I see this Guardian Trust campaign as one that may take several administrations to raise the money, but our members will realize that they're doing the same thing today that our early members did in order to build the buildings. And they're building a fund, the Guardian Trust Fund, that will take care of our buildings forever.
Can you imagine what we would be able to do as an organization if we didn't have to worry about where the funds are coming from to maintain our beautiful buildings? Can you imagine what we could do on the national level, on the state level, and in our local communities in the way of programs and projects? So I invite you, each and every one of you members who love this organization, who are committed to preserving what we have for future generations, to join me in supporting the Guardian Trust campaign.
My hope, my vision, is that we will have this wonderful endowment campaign, and that 125 years our buildings will be as beautiful then as they are now. I want my granddaughter to come here in 18 years when she's a member and be proud of these buildings that we've taken good care of. I want my great-granddaughter and my great-great-granddaughters to come when they're members and also share in our vision and say, my great-grandma took part in this. She helped keep these buildings as beautiful as they are.
What this organization needs first and foremost is a home.
Built by women, managed by women, run by women.
What our founders built, we must preserve.
It should be the finest building ever owned by women.
This is about more than just one President General and one project.
Now is the time for an endowment to preserve our fantastic home.
This Guardian Trust campaign is about taking care of the vision of our founders. 125 years later, we have the opportunity to not only preserve and restore this building, but to make sure that it is still as beautiful 125 years from now as it is today. Please join me in giving to the Guardian Trust campaign for future generations. Almost 1 million women have joined the society since its founding. We want to show the hundreds of thousands or even millions of hours they have given in service to their communities, and to show that they are passionate about their preservation of our history, promotion of quality education, and of showing their patriotic pride in America.
The Celebrate America initiative was created in honor of the 125th anniversary of the Daughters of the American Revolution. It encourages members to become involved in community service and to record their hours to help highlight the mission of the service organization.
We decided to call it Celebrate America because it's our way to show how DAR gives back to our communities. We have such a history of service within the organization, and we are so willing to share our time and talents with others to make America an even better place.
DAR members have answered the call for service throughout the group's history. In the late 19th century, the newly formed organization helped found the Army Nurse Corps at the onset of the Spanish-American War. For decades, the DAR supported the mission of the Red Cross in times of crisis, and members worked with newly arrived immigrants on Ellis Island.
What if we challenged our members to 1 million hours over the 3 years? And that seemed a little scary. Did the math and divided it by our number of members. Well, what if we challenged them to 1 million hours a year? And so as we quickly exceeded that goal, we realized we underestimated the daughters and how hard they're working nationwide. So now we've set a new goal of 10 million hours for the administration, and I think we may have once again underestimated our members.
DAR members have long been involved in community service. Now through Celebrate America, they are also logging their hours to tell the story of how DAR gives back to America.
We have received hundreds of stories of how our members are working in their communities worldwide. We have a member in Arkansas who has her therapy dog called Stormy, and she takes Stormy to a local elementary school to help students who are having trouble with reading. One of my other favorite stories is a 70-year-old member in Louisiana who wanted to draw attention as part of an organization to the number of children in foster care in Louisiana. So what did she do? She rappelled down a building. One of our members in Massachusetts works with a VA-sponsored program called Waves for the Brave. They take veterans who have amputations, take them to the beach, and let them surf. And then this lady served as a catcher in the water. So if they fell, if they had any problems, she was there to catch them and bring them in.
Whether DAR members are escorting World War II veterans on honor flights, caring for historic sites, helping bring awareness to health issues, or working with underserved youth, the Daughters are celebrating America through service to their communities.
The beauty of the Celebrate America program is the cumulative effect it has. However we're doing it, we are making a difference, and that's the story we want to be able to tell.
Knowing that other people care and that other people are out there wanting to do something good in their community, I think that's really powerful.
As DAR members, when we think of service, it's very broad, and it is from the gifts that each person has to contribute.
When you volunteer, not only are you taking all of the talents and the experiences that you have and putting them to work in the community, but you're also building up the community at the same time.
We want a society founded on service. That was a quotation taken directly from Eugenia Washington, one of our founders. And over the last 125 years, that is exactly what has happened. DAR members have been involved in service to their communities from the beginning of the organization, and we continue to do that today. DAR itself is a very large organization, almost 3,000 chapters in every state of the Union, as well as in numerous countries across the world. Those 177,000 women, wherever they find themselves, can impact their communities in very positive ways. So it starts from a very small effort. It might be a member recognizing the need that her community needs a food pantry, and she decides to organize it. She's making a difference in her community because one person saw the need and decided to act on it.
So I've been volunteering with Carpenter Shelter, I believe, for about 8.5 years. So now I generally volunteer on Sunday mornings. My very favorite responsibility is announcing breakfast. And it's my sole job to wake up the residents on Sunday mornings and tell them what an amazing breakfast is waiting for them.
Associations in the community and community groups and the DAR and many other service organizations in our community really do make a difference, and we try and build as many connections to them as possible, recognizing that we do have a shared interest, healthy, strong communities.
DAR only recently formed the Special Projects Grants Program at the national level, but DAR Daughters have been helping their communities for the past 125 years. Matching fund grants of up to $10,000 are awarded in the areas of historic preservation, education, and patriotism. Over the past few years, DAR has awarded over $250,000 annually in support of local activities.
The Bath Community Library was founded in 1701, and it was founded because someone in England sent books to the St. Thomas Parish, which is here in Bath. And it started then, and it's been going ever since. The DAR grant was one that would fund technology, computer technology. What we wanted to do was to get more computers so that we could offer classes. We even bought new computers for the staff. They had problems even checking out books sometimes, so now they're able to serve the patrons so much better because of the computer technology that the DAR grant paid for.
Without the support of the DAR Special Grant Program, we would not be able to offer computer classes. We wouldn't be able to have room to bring in additional books as we were cramped before. Patrons' attendance has increased. We have community functions here. All of this we would be without the support of the DAR.
Free Minds uses the tools of books, a book discussion, and creative writing to build a brotherhood and to enable these young men to see new possibilities for their futures. That is what I love about the DAR, like how it's so firmly planted that literacy and education is the way to change the world. It's hope, it's power. And so that started us off, that special projects grant on our Books Across the Miles. And we have to report today, it's amazingly successful.
We met Free Minds when they were just starting to grow. They work with incarcerated youth, and many of them are illiterate or close to that. And as a chapter, we were trying to find things that we could do and be a part and make an impact and have fun. So it just really came all together. For DAR to be involved in Free Minds or in similar activities where we're working with parts of the community that really many people have given up on. That's very rewarding.
I'm very grateful for DAR's support, and I know our members are too, because we get all the books. And, you know, without the books, there wouldn't be a book club. DAR is an organization that accepts them. You know, they know that they made a mistake, but they also believe in them to the point of their continuous support.
For a person like me that come from deep in the streets, like I didn't know anything about positive life. I always looked at criminal activity as life. So once I was able to read and comprehend, I took off from there. I became a positive individual, and that's what I want to continue to be, a positive individual. And it's great for y'all to help.
The capability that I have is to reach out to all of our program managers out in the field, and I simply ask them that question: how are DAR members making a difference in your facility? And in literally a matter of hours, I had emails flooding in telling me about the stories. The impact that DAR has on the veteran community today is very important, because the DAR members continue to come into our VA hospitals and serve in a number of capacities. That gives veterans today an opportunity to remember that there is an organization and there is a community that cares about them and remembers their sacrifice and service to America.
What I like most about DAR's objectives is that its focus is really on giving back to the community around you. I know the three focuses are historic preservation, education, and patriotism, and I feel like those three focuses really align a lot with the volunteer activities that I want to be involved in.
DAR support has been an ability for us as a small organization to expand our reach much farther than we ever thought we could.
It's important for each person to find a way to give back, to be able to volunteer. We are members of a community. We need to be there. We can be there. And we have to look for those opportunities.
Everywhere, DAR members are making a difference in so many different ways across our VA community, and it's heartwarming to be able to get those stories come flooding in so quickly with immediate recollection of how DAR has contributed to the work of VA.
What I am so attracted to about the DAR is how we pull together women of common interests in historic preservation and education and patriotism. And we do real work with real impact and have a great time doing it. Personally, I was attracted to the three key mission areas because of that connection to history, about my family's history and understanding more about how we're all interconnected and how each one of our patriots made such a difference in their own way, and now we are carrying that torch, and we want to carry it into the future.
Women working together for America, sharing a bond that has lasted for generations. These are the Daughters of the American Revolution, dedicated to their love of God, home, and country.
I'm very proud to be a member of the DAR because it encompasses all that I believe in.
More than 2 centuries after their patriot ancestors founded this nation, today's DAR is still preserving the ideals that made America great by serving communities across the country.
You get this wonderful feeling at the end of the day that I have accomplished something. I have made a difference. And the people's lives that you touched are infinitely more enriched because DAR has walked into their lives.
The DAR's commitment to America begins with its newest citizens. Today's daughters attend naturalization ceremonies like this one in Houston, Texas. It's a moment the Ramirez family has dreamed about, watching their daughter Cindy become an American.
The first time they say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States as citizens of the United States, it is a moving experience. It reminds us of how fortunate we are to have lived in this country for so many generations.
The DAR has supported immigrants since the days of Ellis Island, providing them with a citizenship manual and a warm welcome.
And we want them to understand that we're glad that they're citizens and we recognize the commitment that they've made.
They made us feel that we're no different, that we belong, and that's very important for us.
This day is a very blessed day for me. I've been waiting for this day.
To see their appreciation and to see their joy, I'm grateful to be able to share the day with them.
The DAR has been proudly serving the public since 1890, when it was founded as an organization for women who are direct descendants of Revolutionary War patriots. Today's DAR is one of the largest service groups with 168,000 members and 3,000 chapters in the United States and abroad. Each year, daughters meet for Continental Congress at their Washington, D.C. headquarters. But the DAR is more than its pageantry, history, and beautiful buildings. Its members make it unique.
The DAR member of today is definitely not a fence sitter.
She's very well educated. She's a professional. She is the retiree. She is the stay-at-home mom.
People think that DAR is for old ladies. My slogan is, it's not your great-grandmother's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
We have women of all color, of all religions, of all politics.
The diversity in DAR really attracted me to the organization because it's a really great group of women who are very dynamic and have a wide range of skills and experiences, and I've really learned a lot from them.
Some of the most remarkable women that you will ever hope to meet are here in DAR. They're just fabulous to work with.
The DAR is growing and it's changing, and I want to be a part of that change.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
Today's daughters are a diverse group with a common goal. Their mission is to promote patriotism, education, and historic preservation.
It is the spirit of DAR, the spirit of patriotism, the spirit of service, wanting to do something for someone else.
We can make an impact in this country, and I think that the more people can hear about DAR and the more people can know what we do, the more impact we can actually make.
The DAR's patriotism is felt every day in the nation's veterans hospitals, like these facilities in Nashville, Tennessee, and San Francisco, California, where DAR volunteers spend thousands of hours visiting patients.
I heard you were handsome and debonair, and they weren't lying. What an honor to meet you.
You're too kind to me.
DAR members bring these veterans who fought for America gifts and a message from the heart.
I get to say to them, thank you. I'm thinking of you. We love you. We appreciate what you do. I don't think they hear that enough. I don't think we can ever say thank you enough. We're backed up by thousands of other DAR women who feel the same way. And that's the beauty of it. There's a power behind that. And the guys and the women feel it.
I appreciate it. It's pretty cherished. Shows people care. We're here for a reason. And it's nice to know that people think about it.
Veterans can depend on DAR members to give their time and money. The California DAR is donating Liberty carts like this one to transport disabled veterans around VA medical centers.
If we can show our troops by even small gestures that we support them, that we respect them, and we recognize what they've done, we've done a great deal.
We thank them very, very much.
Today's donors are also working to benefit our troops overseas through projects like So Much Comfort. This grassroots group, headquartered near Dayton, Ohio, adapts clothing for injured soldiers who've worn hospital gowns for months. It relies on volunteers like these Ohio daughters to help sew and ship thousands of garments.
It is something I can do. I can't go over there and hold their hands, but I can sew something to help them out and give them some dignity.
This gives them back their life. And what more can you do?
Whenever there is a need, today's daughters are there supporting America's military. The DAR Project Patriot Committee assembles care packages for wounded troops. Virginia daughter Bridget Ward knows how much these comfort items mean. She's delivered packages to fellow troops in Landstuhl, Germany.
I'm proud to be a member of the Armed Services of the United States, but I'm honored to be a daughter of the American Revolution.
And then there's Texas daughter Pamela Marshall. For this mother of two sons serving in combat areas overseas, DAR's patriotic mission is deeply personal.
As a mother, my heart is full. And as a citizen, I'm extremely grateful.
It is DAR support for education that gives thousands of young people hope for a better life. In places like Grant, Alabama, a mountain community with few opportunities until the DAR built a school here in 1924.
Ladies from all over the United States gave the funds to build those buildings. It's just an amazing story.
Today, the Kate Duncan Smith DAR School has 1,300 students in grades K through 12. KDS is one of 6 schools nationwide partially funded with DAR donations. These students not only get an education with an emphasis on patriotism, they also receive personal attention from DAR members.
They don't just teach you from the textbooks, but they help you with real-life problems too.
It fills my heart with so much joy and gratefulness and pride in this school. I really can't express it, and I appreciate it so much because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
I would say thank you, DAR, because you have built not only a school, you have built a community that will continue to thrive for many generations and years to come.
KDS senior and musician Lindsay Atchley will be able to go to college thanks to the DAR.
It's inspired me, I guess, to encourage other people and to make a difference, or just be a good citizen.
You can reach out and help a child to make a difference in their lives. They in turn will make a difference in the life of our country.
Today's daughters work with schools and literacy programs across the country. They recognize young people with scholarships and good citizenship awards. These New Jersey students are winners of the DAR annual essay contest, which helps children learn about history. DAR education programs also go far beyond the classroom.
Welcome to the Pink Ribbon House. You ladies are in for a special treat today.
Texas chapters gave tours of this designer-decorated Pink Ribbon House in Houston, owned by Royce Hassel and his wife Sylvia, a breast cancer survivor. The tours raised more than $500,000 for medical research.
We can help educate members and other people about the prevention and early detection for breast cancer, and just in general help them know more about how breast cancer can affect their lives.
To have them volunteer so many hours for free, you know, it was a big deal. It was very touching to me.
The DAR is dedicated to preserving America's historic landmarks, places like Meadow Garden in Augusta, Georgia. Built around 1790, this was the home of George Walton, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
It's important that we preserve this history and that we learn to appreciate our past, and it will hopefully give us courage and insight to move forward and to be better citizens.
Georgia Daughters not only maintain this property, but they've also launched a campaign to attract tours so more people can learn about George Walton's contributions.
And this is one way we can teach our children that there were men and women who were willing to sacrifice their homes and their lives and their property to give us the freedom that we have.
The DAR has preserved hundreds of local properties and placed markers at historical sites across the nation. Its library also preserves one of the largest collections of genealogy records. To join the DAR, women must trace their lineage to a Revolutionary War patriot, any soldier or civilian who aided the cause. But with the help of DAR genealogists and the Internet, getting started on the research isn't hard.
We discover new patriots every day, patriots of all backgrounds. And there are a lot of people here who are willing to help you find what you need.
You can go to them, ask them for anything, you can share. It's just beautiful.
For Tennessee daughter Pazetta Millette, it turned out to be a fascinating journey of discovery.
I was so excited, I couldn't sleep.
Not only did she find relatives she never knew, but she also uncovered family history lost for generations. History that can now be passed on to her children and grandchildren.
To see what your ancestry did, the contribution that they made, history just comes alive.
Today's daughters are not only preserving the past, they also care about America's future. These seal pups were rescued along the California coast. Marine mammal centers treat these injured animals and return them to the wild. It's one of many conservation programs the DAR supports. However they choose to serve, today's daughters are committed to their mission.
To me personally, it means making an impact in my community and being right there and just learning and growing. And it's just been an amazing experience in my life.
Like many women, Lindsay Whitty is balancing the demands of a busy life. She joined a chapter that meets on Saturdays to accommodate members' needs.
So everybody can find a niche and everybody can find their particular place that they fit in the best.
I just think as a young woman especially, you need an outlet for yourself. You need something to do that will make you feel good about yourself, you'll find good friends, and you'll be able to also give back.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
For today's daughters, DAR membership offers so many rewards.
You will meet ladies who you will become friends with for the rest of your life.
And you just make friends all over the United States and even all over the world. Their friendship and knowing them will add a new layer and a new dimension to your life.
This is really what's kept me going. It's what keeps me young. It keeps me interested.
We have a lot of fun, let me tell you, we really do.
It fills your heart and soul. Every little pocket of your heart and soul can be filled by something that DAR offers you.
And to know that you are united with 100,000 plus women, it's incredible.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
I'm today's DAR.
Today's DAR is carrying on its tradition of patriotism and service, giving its best to America.
We are fortunate to be Americans, and it is up to us to continue the legacy that our founders began and to make this a better country.
Over the past few years, the city has made a great effort to upgrade a variety of city facilities. And the renovation of these dugouts, the dugouts at Wayland Baseball Field, the new restrooms at Wayland Baseball Field, and the renovation of the rec center are some examples of what we try to do. And the Public Works Department has played a big role in getting these projects built for us. And over here, lined up against the fence here like a prison lineup, are the guys responsible for this beautiful field. Let's give them a big hand. This is the best field in the state of Nevada right now, guys, and you can be proud of it. At this time, I'd like to introduce Scott Hansen, our Public Works Director, who would like to say a few things regarding this project. Scott?
Thank you. And just real quick, one of the best things for me working in Boulder City is everybody seems to work together as a team. I really appreciate that, and it's a really enjoyable place to work. For this project, to me, it all starts with the top. City Council budgeted $130,000 for this project. And in our 10-year plan, we have millions of dollars worth of projects that are competing. And without the City Council supporting and prioritizing this project, there is no project. So, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Peggy Levitt, let's thank them real quick. And I'm just going to run right through how the project works. After that, we sit down with the engineering group. My engineering division does a great job. We learned last year we could save $100,000 when the city, our engineering folks, served as a general contractor. So instead of going out with one bid package that encompassed everything, we individually did bid packages. And Shane Cunningham, in particular, managed each one of those contractors to do each piece of the project, saving the city lots of money. And following up right after that is the landscape division. Sergio Solisari and everybody in the landscape division. They come in here, completely redid the infield, completely redid the irrigation system in the outfield, and resodded the outfield to make it a brand new facility complex. The building maintenance division's putting up new wood around the park. The streets division, we've got the heavy equipment loaned in from them. The electric division played a part too. They were out here rerunning electric wires for the sports lighting. And just finally, I wanted to thank Coach Moorhead. She's played a great part and a great team player in this project, too. We had weekly emails and meetings and talked about the project throughout, and she was a great partner in this project. I wanted to thank you. So, thank you, everybody.
On behalf of myself, the coaching staff, all these girls, you guys are the bomb. I mean, this is beautiful. We thank you so much. All you guys, the council, the city, all you guys that I know work super, super hard to make this. I had a comment the other day from a coaching friend that came for our round robin, and she said, wow, where am I? Wrigley Field. So that's a really high compliment to you guys. And it is. It's fantastic, and we are spoiled rotten to be playing here, and I know these girls really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much. What do you girls say? Thank you.
Just really quick, I wanted to say thank you for everyone that made this possible. This only kind of things happen at Boulder City. And this is one of the reasons why it is such a great place to come to school. Is because things like this, with everybody working together, pitching in to do things like this, and it's just awesome. And we are super, super excited, and I'd love to say play ball, but I won't. Thank you. Oh, let's cut the ribbon. You don't have to come here.
For untold centuries, the turbid waters of the Colorado River battered their way through the forbidding canyons of its 1,700-mile course, traversing the arid Southwest. For the most part, little known except to the native Indians and a few parties of intrepid explorers. Draining a vast region of mountain and desert, entering 7 of the largest western states, it poured its waters southward into the Gulf of California, carrying into its delta a tremendous volume of silt, and periodically overflowing the prosperous towns and rich agricultural districts near its mouth with devastating floods. From the time of its discovery, it remained a challenge to engineers who sought to control it, until the enactment in 1928 of the Boulder Canyon Project Act, authorizing the construction of Boulder Dam. In Black Canyon, where the Colorado River forms the boundary between Nevada and Arizona, in the very heart of the great desert of the Southwest, the United States Department of the Interior, through its Bureau of Reclamation, was directed to proceed with the construction of this mightiest of dams. Highways were pushed across the desert. Railroad lines thrust their ribbons of steel through the sagebrush and cactus, and transmission lines for construction power were brought hundreds of miles across the heat-stricken wastelands of the southern Nevada desert. Every section of the country was called upon to contribute to the staggering quantity and wide diversity of materials required. Thousands of tons of steel, millions of barrels of cement, machinery, gasoline and oil by the thousands of gallons, tools, building materials, all these and much more were concentrated at the site of operations in an endless stream. The engineering forces completed their surveys, working under the most hazardous conditions, and every state in the Union furnished its quota of laborers and artisans. In what had once been an uninhabited, waterless desert, supporting only a sparse, inhospitable growth of chaparral and cactus, the beautiful little town of Boulder City was built within the short space of 15 months to house the army of 5,000 men to be employed. Here was no construction camp such as was known in the early days of the West. Instead, Boulder City was developed as a model town, furnishing every facility and convenience to its inhabitants. 4 churches, a modern, fully equipped school, and various civic organizations met the cultural requirements of the community, while a theater and several clubs furnished recreation. A thriving business section developed along the principal streets, while pleasant homes surrounded by gardens faced the broad tree-lined residential avenues of this modern, spotless town. The buildings housing the offices of the Bureau of Reclamation and the Civic Administration, which operated directly under the federal government, were set in the midst of pleasant parks, which were welcome havens of rest after the day's labors in a country where the summer temperature often reaches 125 degrees above zero. In the business section of the town, arcades formed a protection against the tropic sun. Lovely flower gardens bloomed in marked contrast with the surrounding desert. Lining street after street, the white cottages of the married workmen recalled to mind the military camps of 1918, while single men were housed in air-cooled dormitories, each accommodating 176 occupants. Under conditions which would have gained the wholehearted approval of any modern housewife, tons of food were prepared and served daily in the sanitary, electrically equipped kitchens. A corps of cooks and waiters was able to feed as many as 1,300 men at one setting of the tables. Menus were varied and the food was of excellent quality. As Boulder City was about 7 miles distant from the dam site, it was necessary to provide transportation for the workmen to and from the job. This was accomplished by a fleet of passenger motor trucks, some of them carrying as many as 160 men. A 24-hour day was divided into 3 shifts of 8 hours each for all classes of labor. The 4th of July, Labor Day, and Christmas were the only holidays observed. Once the rapid tempo of the ambitious construction schedule was established and underway toward the marking of a record-breaking achievement in American engineering history. It was in March 1931 that 6 Companies Incorporated of San Francisco, California, was awarded the general contract for the construction of the project, including Boulder Dam and its appurtenant works. And by early summer of the same year, preliminary construction work was in full swing in Black Canyon. During this early period of construction, before roads had been built into the depths of the gorge, men and materials were forced to take to boats or travel the catwalks, often swung between the sheer walls of the canyon at dizzy heights above the muddy waters of the world's most dangerous river. It was not long before roads and rail lines had penetrated into the very lowest reaches of the canyon. To provide these arteries of transportation, thousands of tons of virgin rock were blasted from the age-old walls of the gorge. Thus, the first thunders of man's determination to conquer the Colorado River reverberated between the sheer cliffs of the canyon, which heretofore had known only the hot silence of the desert and the roar of the river's angry floods. The boring of 4 diversion tunnels to carry the stream around the dam site during construction, 2 on each side of the river, 56 feet in diameter and averaging 4,000 feet in length, constituted the first major construction operation. The drilling jumbos used on this job were mounted on motor trucks to facilitate handling and were capable of driving from 24 to 30 powder holes into the heading simultaneously by means of drifter drills. The tunnels were excavated through the rock simultaneously from 4 headings, 1 at either end and 2 boring in opposite directions from a river-level auxiliary tunnel located about midway on the main bore. A pioneer drift was drilled at top line and closely followed by the excavation for the complete 56-foot bore. Thousands of tons of drilled steel were used in this work, and the sharpening shops were kept working at top speed night and day to maintain a steady supply. After the powder holes had been drilled and the rock blasted, power shovels and trucks moved into the tunnels for the purpose of removing the shattered material. An unbroken parade of heavy-duty trucks, each handling from 8 to 10 tons of rock, labored up over the steep roads cut into the canyon walls to dispose of the material in the gulches adjacent to the dam site. This phase of the task, which entailed the excavation and the handling of over 1.5 million cubic yards of material, was completed within a period of 13 months and was considered the most grueling portion of the work for both men and machinery. After the tunnels had been excavated, they were lined with concrete, 3 feet in thickness. Due to the unprecedented size of the bores, special equipment was designed to facilitate this task. The tunnels were lined in segmental sections, the invert or base being the first in which the concrete was placed. A gantry crane operating through the tunnel itself handled the concrete throughout this operation. The sidewalls were next lined behind movable steel forms, which traveled through the excavated section on rails laid from portal to portal. The top arch was placed with the use of a concrete gun operated by compressed air. To prepare the canyon walls to receive the abutments of the dam and to remove loose and dangerous rock from the face of the cliffs overhanging the site, many tons of rock were torn away and hurled into the depths of the canyon in a series of spectacular blasts, which occurred almost daily during the period from commencement of operations at the dam site to the time when actual building of the dam began about 2 years later. To reach their positions on the canyon walls, the men engaged in the work of drilling and handling explosives for these huge blasts traveled in cages or skips swung on cables at heights of hundreds of feet over the river. To the casual observer, this dizzy skyride must have seemed thrilling indeed. but to the workmen themselves it became a matter of course, and all a part of the day's job. The first step in preparing for the blast was the drilling of powder holes into the rock of the canyon wall. For this purpose, the jackhammer drill, operated by a single man, was generally used. The holes were then loaded with dynamite, and the blast set off, shattering the air with its detonation and shaking the very earth with its force. After the blast, these acrobatic workmen, known in construction camp parlance as high scalers, swarmed over the face of the cliff to remove the fragments of rock shattered and loosened by the upheaval of the explosion. Only in this manner could the walls be successfully cleared of debris. Swinging in bosun's chairs from the canyon's rim, these daredevils were protected in their hazardous work by hard helmets, safety ropes, and other safety appliances. In November 1932, preparations were made to divert the river through the tunnels. A small blast opened a breach in a temporary dike which had held the river in check at the entrance to one of the tubes, opening the way for the free passage of the water into the 50-foot concrete-lined bore. A temporary dam of earth and rock was quickly thrown across the stream, deflecting the entire flow. Within 24 hours, the Colorado River, under control for the first time in its history, was flowing around and past the dam site through the huge diversion tubes. An all-time record was set in placing the more than 1 million cubic yards of material required for the construction of the two cofferdams, in themselves barriers of no mean proportions. The earth fills were compacted to an elevation well above the high water mark to prevent the flow of the river from entering the scene of operations during the construction of the dam and power plant. After the completion of the cofferdams, the site was unwatered, and a fleet of power shovels and trucks put to work on the excavation of the riverbed material to provide foundations for the structures. This excavation was carried to a point 135 feet below the old river level, necessitating the handling of more than 2 million yards of rock, earth, and sand. Here again, the stamina of both men and machinery was put to a severe test in transporting the waste from the very lowest depths of the gorge. As the cleanup of the dam site progressed, the ancient bed of the Colorado River was laid bare. Here, geologists were able to read the story of what had happened ages ago, when the chasm now called Black Canyon had been carved out of the primal rock by the rush of water from a great inland sea, and the Colorado River was settling into its present bed. To ensure the greatest possible stability for the foundation of the dam, meticulous care was exercised in preparing the rock surfaces for the reception of the first concrete. Sand and gravel for the 4.5 million cubic yards of concrete required for the construction of the dam and its appurtenant works were obtained from a detrital deposit located on the Arizona side of the river, some 12 miles upstream from the dam site. Here, the raw material was excavated by dragline and hauled by train to the gravel screening and washing plant, which was the largest of its kind ever built, being capable of producing 20,000 tons of crushed, screened, graded, and washed materials every 24 hours. Arriving at the plant, the raw material was dumped into hoppers, from which it was conveyed into the plant over endless belts. Here it passed through the various stages of screening, by which it became suitable aggregate material for the manufacture of concrete of a quality meeting the most rigidly uniform requirements. Oversized cobbles, that is, those measuring more than 9 inches in one dimension, were first screened out, then crushed and returned to the plant for regrading, along with raw material. The screening plant itself consisted of 4 towers of similar design, each equipped with screening apparatus, and each separating out gravel of a different given size from the mass of raw material reaching the unit over the conveyor belts. An endless stream of raw, pit-run gravel passed over the screens, and the selected material carried to the stockpiles over the conveyor belts, each of the 4 sizes being stocked separately, ready at hand when needed at the mixing plants. A clarifier tank provided 6 million gallons of clear water daily for washing gravel and sand. Raw material for concrete manufacture, which fell into the size classified as sand, was graded a second time into 3 sizes after the very fine and undesirable sand had been discarded. The 3 selected sands were then recombined into a uniform mixture to meet specifications for the concrete to be used in the dam and the appurtenant structures of the project. The sand was then stored, awaiting the requirements of the construction program. As the graded materials were called for, conveyor belts loaded the sand and gravel into railroad cars for transportation to the concrete mixing plants located at the dam site several miles distant. Concrete was mixed in two plants, one located in the bottom of the canyon upstream from the dam, and the other on the canyon rim on the Nevada side, immediately over the dam site, both equipped with the most advanced machinery for concrete manufacture. Upon arrival at the concrete mixing plant, sand and gravel of the various sizes were stored in separate bins. A railroad system of sizable proportions was required to maintain a steady flow of material from the gravel pit to the screening plant and from the screening plant to the concrete mixing plants. Bulk cement was unloaded from railroad cars by means of a pneumatic pump and conveyed into the bins of the blending plant, where cements from several production sources and of varying physical and chemical characteristics were combined into a uniform product. This was necessary because of the requirement for standardization in concrete workability, strength, texture, color, and other properties. Following the progress of concrete manufacture through its successive stages, we see the several ingredients entering the concrete mixing plant, where they were combined scientifically and under rigid inspection into a finished product. With a maximum capacity of 24 cubic yards of concrete every 3½ minutes, the high-level mixing plant at Boulder Dam represented the ultimate in plant installations of its kind. Here, automatic equipment not only controlled the apportionment of the concrete ingredients, but in addition maintained a graphic record of every plant operation. From his post on the control deck of the mixing plant, an operator was able to direct the entire mixing cycle, from the initial weighing of the ingredients on through the complete mixing process. The human element was almost completely eliminated, as the mechanical equipment was capable of automatically selecting, measuring, weighing, and recording the proper materials in the precise amounts required for the production of a given mix, to which the recording dials had previously been adjusted and set. Here also we find the production line conveyor belt speeding up the process by carrying the component parts from the measuring and weighing hoppers into the batching bins, from which the materials were dumped into the 4 cubic yard capacity rotary mixers. Water was added in controlled amounts, and the entire mass thoroughly agitated as the last step in the economical and efficient manufacture of a concrete strong enough to withstand the enormous pressure to which the dam would be subjected. From the mixing plant, concrete was dispatched to all sections of the works, and because of the widely varying conditions prevailing, various types of containers and methods of transportation were involved. Motor trucks and electric trains were utilized as carriers, and containers varied from the 8 cubic yard capacity bottom dump buckets to the 4 cubic yard capacity transit mixers. The latter were used on long hauls, where it was necessary to agitate the concrete in transportation to prevent segregation of the mix. However, the major portion of the concrete handled on the project was carried in the 8 cubic yard buckets and transported from the mixing plants by electric train. A system of 9 aerial cableways spanning the canyon from rim to rim and anchored at either end to movable towers was utilized to carry the concrete and other materials from the points of train or truck delivery to the dam and other structures on the project. It was on June 6, 1933, that the first bucket of concrete was placed in the very lowest of the dam forms, 135 feet below the level where a few months previously had flowed the unchallenged Colorado River. What was to become the highest dam in the world began to rise from the impregnable rock of its foundation. As bucket after bucket of concrete was dumped into the forms, the plan of the structure became apparent and soon extended along its full 660 feet dimension of thickness at the base. Throughout the lower levels of the structure, concrete was placed from a trestle anchored to the Nevada wall of the canyon. The concrete was poured in keyed or interlocking columns, the design of which became more noticeable as the 5-foot layers or lifts in which the concrete was placed rose from level to level. As the work of placing progressed, the crews became expert in the handling of the equipment, and record-breaking daily pours were made, only to be surpassed by later achievements on this same structure. The transit mixers were transported on trucks, from the bed of which they could be removed and handled on the overhead cableways. These were used in the placement of concrete in the confined forms along the abutments, where the 8 cubic yard buckets could not be handled. Selecting at random one bucket from among the hundreds of thousands that traveled from the canyon rim over the cableways and down into the dam forms, we see the typical operation from the time the bucket is picked up by the cableway on the canyon rim, swung out into midair over the gorge hundreds of feet above the forms, its tremendous weight of 22 tons riding easily and gracefully over the cable, as it is lowered into the forms with an ease and certainty seemingly out of proportion to its great bulk and tonnage. As the bucket descends, suspended at the end of hundreds of feet of cable strands, it is received at the forms, the safety locks unlatched, the signal given, and 8 more cubic yards of concrete added to the dam's bulk. Concrete was compacted into the forms by mechanical vibration, the application of which ensured dense compression against adjacent surfaces. Workmen were carried from the canyon rim to the dam forms by way of the inclined skidway, or monkey slide as it was called, which operated through the Nevada abutment excavation. Boulder Dam laborers represented a fair cross-section of the American working class, and many stayed on the job during the entire period of construction. With an ambitious progress schedule to meet, and with work going forward under all conditions at all seasons of the year without cessation, rain or shine, both day and night, within a year, less 4 days, 2 million of the 3 1/4 million cubic yards of the dam's total volume had been placed in the forms, and Boulder Dam had risen to an impressive height, already having taken its place as one of the wonders of the West and a tourist attraction of prime importance. Meanwhile, progress had been made in the erection of the structures appurtenant to the dam itself. The construction of the power plant, a U-shaped structure at the downstream toe of the dam, had been in progress for some months, and as its substructures assumed form, it gave some hint of the beauty it was later to possess. The intake towers, 2 on each side of the canyon wall immediately upstream from the dam, were in course of construction, and from a maze of reinforcing steel rapidly rising toward the uppermost rim of the canyon. These structures were later to serve as giant inlet valves for the outlet conduits and power penstock systems, and the placing of the seats for the mammoth cylinder gates was an important phase in their construction. Located at the ultimate high water storage level of the reservoir, the 2 spillways, designed to act as overflow controls in the open bypass system, were located 1 on each side of the river, upstream from the dam and within the reservoir area. Work on their construction progressed simultaneously with that of the dam itself. One of the most interesting and spectacular phases of the work was the fabrication and installation of the huge steel penstock pipes, forming the conduits for the power and pressure outlet systems. This work was performed by the Babcock and Wilcox Company of New York City, who erected a modern steel fabrication mill near the dam site to facilitate the undertaking. As the pipe units to be fabricated were of unprecedented size and weight, it was necessary to design, build, and install special machinery solely for this task. Provisions were made to manufacture pipe ranging in diameter from 8 1/2 to 30 feet, from steel plate varying in thickness from 5/8 of an inch to 2 3/4 inches. As it was impossible to ship units of this size across country by rail, steel plate was brought from eastern rolling mills, and the entire process of manufacture, including rolling and assembling, was initiated and completed at the Boulder Dam plant. First step in the fabrication process, after the plates had been laid out to dimension, was the shaping of the edges to ensure the precision and accuracy of later steps in their manufacture. This work was done on a planing machine capable of handling a strip of steel 50 feet in length. The plates were then given an initial bend on a giant press operating at a pressure of 3,000 tons. This initial bending was necessary to avoid damaging the rolls when the plates, in the next step of fabrication, were rolled into circular form. The plates entering into the manufacture of the 30-foot diameter penstock pipe were fabricated through the initial steps of manufacture in 11-foot widths. These plates were 2 3/4 inches in thickness and were rolled into circular form by being passed through 40-inch vertical rolls until the desired degree of curvature had been obtained. One such plate represented a segment equal to 1/3 of the complete circumference of a finished pipe. Having been rolled to the correct degree of curvature, the 3 curved plates were joined to form a single ring, 30 feet in diameter and 11 feet long. 2 such rings were then joined end to end to form a shop unit 22 feet long. All joints were made by electric welding, and in forming the longitudinal joints, an automatic welding machine traveling on a chassis supported in line over the joint was used. As these pipe units were of a size never before assembled, it became necessary to design and build special machinery to accomplish many phases of the work. This was especially true in the fabrication of mitered rings to be later assembled into bend sections. The general usage of electric cutting and welding was applied not only to pipe sections, but to the manufacture of other fabricated units as well. A complete shop unit weighed from 150 to 184 tons, depending upon its design, determined by its ultimate use upon installation in the power penstock system. Circumferential joints were made by rotating the rings, making up a shop unit beneath an electric welding machine, suspended above the line of the joint to be welded. Every foot of welded joint was subjected to a searching examination by X-ray and recorded on photographic film, which exposed even the slightest imperfections in the continuity of the weld. Samples of typically welded joints were subjected to severely rigid laboratory tests, calculated to produce a condition of strain far in excess of that to be borne by the joint under actual usage. The discovery of even the slightest imperfection was sufficient cause for the rejection of a complete unit. In marked contrast to the meticulous care and precision exercised throughout every phase of their manufacture was the actual size and weight of the pipe units themselves. Heavy-duty rigging of special design was required to handle the sections through the shop, and high-capacity cranes were required to move them step by step through the progressive phases of their manufacture. To equalize the terrific internal strains introduced into the plates by bending and the additional temperature strains incurred during welding, individual pipe sections were subjected to a temperature of 1400 degrees Fahrenheit in a gigantic annealing furnace. This temperature was induced not by the application of flame itself, but through the circulation of superheated gas. Shop processes were carried only as far as the production of the unit section. As these sections were to be joined to form a continuous penstock, provision was made to accurately accomplish this junction in the tunnels. To guarantee a satisfactorily tight field joint, the ends of the sections were machined on a mammoth vertical lathe, operating across the 30-foot diameter of the pipe. After a final inspection, the pipe section was ready for installation. A modern streamlined train passing through one of the huge tubes affords an interesting gauge for the comparative size of the units. The job of transporting the pipe sections from the plant to the dam site was in itself a tremendous undertaking. And to accomplish this work, a special road trailer capable of carrying 200 tons was designed and built. Caterpillar tractors furnished the motive power, as the trailer itself was not equipped with the means of locomotion. During handling, the conformation of the pipe section was maintained by rigid internal bracing. The movement of the heavy trucks was controlled by air brakes and power steering apparatus, with which the trailer itself was equipped. Upon arrival at the canyon rim, directly over the dam site, the unit was maneuvered into position for lowering into the canyon. To perform this task and to handle other heavy equipment, a permanent 200-ton capacity cableway had been swung over the gorge, its 6 3.5-inch track cables securely anchored into the rock of the canyon wall. The cableway was manipulated from a control tower overhanging the canyon, from which the operator commanded a full view of all its movements. The heavy hoisting machinery, controlled by synchronized motors, was the largest and most powerful of its kind ever built, as were also the track cables themselves, which spanned the canyon a distance of 1,256 feet at an elevation of 700 feet above the river from the head tower located on the Nevada side. Over the track cables traveled the carriage through which the hoisting and traveling cables were played. A specially designed heavy-duty rig, which became known to the workmen as the moonbeam, because of its peculiar shape and from which the pipe sections were suspended, was used in lowering the huge tubes into the low levels of the canyon while cradled in a sling of heavy steel cable. After all lashings were secure, the pipe section was lifted from the trailer to begin its slow and carefully controlled movement over the cableway riding from the rim out into space, suspended 700 feet above its ultimate position. When the cable carriage with its tremendous weight of steel had been maneuvered into location over the intended landing far below, the hoisting cables were slowly played out and the pipe lowered under absolute control into the canyon. Here, a second specially designed car waited at the portal of the access tunnel to relieve the cableway of its burden and carry the pipe section underground to become a part of the extensive conduit system penetrating the cliffs on both sides of the canyon. With the workmen laboring in the tunnels far underground, the gargantuan task of placing the penstock pipes in position to form continuous conduits between the intake towers and the powerhouse and outlet works was accomplished. The separate units were hoisted into location with the aid of cables, and once placed in position, were joined with pressure pins to form a continuous pipe. While work on the appurtenant features of the Boulder Canyon project was in progress, an uninterrupted stream of concrete had been pouring into the forms of the dam from both mixing plants. Progress was curtailed only by the limitations of sound engineering and construction practice. Day by day, week after week, the top workings of the structure approached its full height of 730 feet, far above the crest of any other dam yet built by man.